Okay, so this is the final project. I actually am baking the Calmet, don't know how to pronounce that one, lemon cream cake that I ended up doing for one of my stages. Now, a little background on it is, lemon desserts date back centuries in the Mediterranean, but they became popular in the US in the 1840s with the invention of baking powder, which is also from this cookbook, even though it's from 1918, which ended up making a staple at tea parties and gatherings. Now, in the early 20th century, the cream variation emerged, aka the one I'm making it popular for special occasions due to the creamy richness of the custard, whipped cream, or fillings. This one is actually a filling, although it says you have to pour it over top, so I don't understand the filling versus nowadays filling. But lemons were also popular in 1918 due to the Spanish flu because lemons were a symbol of hope and in high demand due to different city officials promoting the idea that lemons were the cure to the flu. And as a microbiologist, no, they are not the cure to the flu. Now, when it comes to the sugar, which is a huge part of this recipe, it calls for a cup and a half. Consumption of the sugar around surged in the 20th century, particularly with soda and sweetened beverages when they became popular. However, the history of sugar is far more complicated than the sugary drinks, right? In the US, it is intertwined with colonialism, slavery, and industrialization, which is something we learned a lot about in this class. It was originally for the wealthy, but then it became a cheap source of calories during industrialization, which then fueled economic growth and public health concerns as well. Fueling from economic growth, it has become a central component of the US diet due to it being driven in industrial production, trade policies, and cultural preferences. Don't mind me, my notes are on the side. I did this a while ago. Considering the recipes specific from this cookbook, I will give a little background on it. It's the Calmet Baking Powder Company, which was founded in 1989 in Chicago by William Monroe Wright. It's a double-acting aluminum phosphate-based formula which transformed American baking. Now, apparently you can still find this. I cannot find it. So I found the closest thing to it, which is Clabber Girl. If I can bring it up. There we go. Which is also a double-acting baking powder, and it is a cornstarch aluminum bicarbonate sodium aluminum phosphate. So, super close. Hoping it does the trick, considering the other one that my mother uses is not. It's also gluten-free, so I can use it. Now, this company was named after his younger brother who died. But this cookbook came out in 1918, which I said earlier. After that, the book itself says that it got the highest awards given to it in Chicago and Paris. Now, whether that's acting, advertisement, or actually real, I can't find it. Now, later on, 11 years later, in 1929, it was bought out by Postum Cereal, which later that same year became General Foods. Then it was bought out in 1990 by Kraft Foods, which coincidentally is the exact same year that my mother started working for them. She started working for them in April. They bought it later in that summer, I believe. Don't have the exact date on that one. But then Kraft was later bought out by Heinz in a merger gone wrong, in my opinion. Because it was supposed to be a merger, about 50-50 merger, and it ended up being bought out in 2015, which is the same year my mom lost her job to the company. And she had worked for Heinz previously to Kraft. Finding all this out while researching the company was pretty astonishing, seeing how small the world really still is after all these years, considering that recipe is still around and it's still being sold somewhere. I have yet to find it in stores, but if you look online, you can find places to order it. But I wasn't about to order something for double the price with shipping that I could purchase this one for. Now the recipe, if you want to get into it, it's a little messy. Because I just got done mixing it all. You probably heard the oven beep, which I'm going to put it in right now. Now, this recipe, I thought it was going to make a smaller cake. It didn't. These are my grandma's tins from 1950. I thought, similar. No, it needs 2 of them. Thought I only needed 1. Thankfully, she had 2. We're going to set the timer for 25 minutes. Now, the recipe calls for 3.5 cups of pastry flour. I couldn't find pastry flour, but according to my research, pastry flour and cake flour are almost similar. The difference is that cake flour has about 1% less protein in it, and it's normally bleached. I found unbleached. So, even closer. This whole time period is use what you can find. So it's 3.5 cups of pastry flour, 3 level teaspoons of the baking powder, 1/2 cup of butter, 1.5 cups sifted granulated sugar, which is also a pain in the butt. If you've ever had granulated sugar, sifting it, I ended up having to go back and find more sugar because what I had wouldn't go through the sifter, and I didn't want to use that because I didn't want it to mess with the recipe. Juice of half a lemon. Now, the lemons that I had were more pulpy, so I ended up using a full lemon because it only made this much. Anyway. And then the rind of a whole lemon, which I did use the whole rind. 1 cup of cold water and whites of 4 eggs. Now, my family is a family of bakers, so we have this neat little tool. You can get in there. Yeah, there we go. To separate the egg whites. So nice, instead of sifting it back and forth between the little shells. Now, the recipe is a little complicated, so I did have to call my aunt because my mom's at work, and I did not understand part of it. Now, it says to sift the flour once, then measure it. Add the baking powder and sift 3 times combined. That was a pain. But I'm hoping it's worth it because that cake smells really good. Cream the butter and sifted sugar thoroughly, and then add the grated rind, and then put the lemon juice in a cup. Add water to make the cup full. So I had about 1/3 to 1/2 a cup, closer to 1/3 of lemon juice. So then I added 2/3. But then I had to call my aunt because this part didn't make sense. To make full, now add flour and water alternatively, beating thoroughly, and fold in the well-beaten egg whites of 4 eggs. So the recipe itself calls for 1 cup cold water. Before I had put the egg whites in, it was very, very thick, more bread-like consistency. So I called my aunt, and she said at that time period, you probably still add the water in from the rest of it. So I added in that 1/3 cup left of the cold water, and then it gave more cake-like consistency. And then I folded in the egg whites, and then it doesn't say this, because these are my grandma's pans, and I don't want to ruin them, I sprayed them with olive oil. And now they are in the oven, and it's supposed to cook for 30 to 35 minutes at a moderate oven. Now, after research, that moderate oven means between 350 and 375. I'm cooking it at 350 degrees, and because of my baking pans, I'm starting it at 25 minutes, and then I will add it on after that because my oven actually likes to stay hot and continue increasing, which is why I have 3 thermometers in there. But otherwise, oven's very nice. Now, for the cream filling, it calls for 4 egg yolks, which I have in the fridge, a juice of half a lemon, which again, I did a full lemon, a second lemon, because it didn't give that much liquid, and then 2 cups confectioner sugar. If you don't know what confectioner sugar is, it's the same thing as powdered sugar. Now, it says to put into a deep bowl. By the way, the amount of bowls I've had to use for this, now I know why it's considered a special occasion cake. It has a lot of dishes. Not all that efficient. You have to add the yolks and the egg in the lemon juice together, and then gradually add the sugar, beating the entire time. Add sugar until just the right spread. Beat long and hard and spread on cake when cool. Lemon cream and orange cream cakes are very fine and economical, and failure is impossible with these 2 recipes and the Calumet baking powder. Then again, there's an ad for it and saying that it's economical and very fine. My grandma, who's 85, states that it means more like special occasion. And according to my research, still means special occasion. As failure with is impossible, we're going to find out. Don't worry, I will include the finished product in the written portion of my assignment. Thank you very much.